He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to the Alex Marlow Show. I'm glad you're here. I hope all of you had a great weekend. There's no way it was as good as mine, though, because you know what I did this weekend? Flew to Minnesota, drove by Governor Walz's house, and drove by over and over yelling retard, calling him retarded, all sorts of variations on this. It was the only thing to do. It was the only way I could have fun this weekend is just calling Tim Walz retard. This is a historic opportunity, guys. First of all, Tim Walz, bad guy, called all of us fascists, all that, and was a vocal font of all the worst things you could possibly say about conservatives and Republicans and Donald Trump. And we get to use the word retard in perpetuity if we win this one. So it's a big fight in our hands. Going to take it back. So I did my solemn duty. I think I had to be a part of it. I had to be a part of history. Hope Walz, Tim Walz's obnoxious daughter, who is an adult, so we can play her content on the show, was very upset about all the retard talk. Check this out.
No, I'm talking about this because while my family and I are always going to be the bigger people, the president calling my dad what he did has unleashed a storm regarding offensive language. We are the bigger people, but it is unleashed beep, 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 swear word, beep, 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 I'm articulate, beep, 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 beep. Hope Walz, baby. Language towards me and my family, and specifically my brother. You can call me whatever you want. You can call my dad, my mom. When it's Gus, to the no. To the no. He dealt with people calling him that last August, and now there's a resurgence. And no, how is it okay that the president of the United States can call? Has anyone explained to me the singing voice? Like my brother, has anyone ever explained that? I mean, everyone is starting to do this, particularly online. I just don't get it. And I don't know where it comes from, where the affectation come from. Could we trace it back somewhere? I don't know. I mean, we're in this era now where I do feel like that we are celebrating sort of anti-intellectualism and people who don't sound smart. It doesn't feel like we're prioritizing, and this isn't even a political statement. It's just that we're not really prioritizing excellence in terms of how you present yourself publicly. But this is just really interesting, deeply inarticulate. Her brother has special needs of some sort, but this is just a card they're playing because Tim Walz over and over again has referred to Republicans by every horrible name in the book. So I have zero sympathy for this because it's I don't want her brother called names. It's fine, but that's not really the crux of it. The crux is her dad is a retard and everyone is pointing it out. Can call somebody, anybody, doesn't matter who they are, that, and then all of his freaking cult members come and attack those people and that person's family. Say what you want about my dad. He's an elected official, right? Like that's going to happen. I think it's utterly disgraceful that the president would do that. But then the attacks that I have seen, I have people DMing me saying absolutely horrendous things. When I was home last week, somebody drove by and screamed that we were R words, just driving by in their car. Unbelievable. I'm like, what world are we living in? And again, I draw the line at Gus because he dealt with that before and not again. You people are disgraceful. Shame on you, all of you. She's an amazing person. I love Hope Walz. I do. Just what a great character. I mean, it's just so wonderful for us. Do not use the word retard, but it's perfectly okay to refer to ICE as the Gestapo. It's perfectly okay to refer to Trump supporters as Nazis and fascists, as Tim Walz has done. This is a quote from Tim Walz this is this year. What's wrong in our country? What's wrong is our country is being stolen by fascists and Nazis, and we're trying to do all we can to try to stop it. 2024, he referred to the Madison Square Garden rally as Nazi rally, compared to Nazi rally. Trump won generals like Adolf Hitler. He's called us fascists over and over again. Remember, he was the architect of the J.D. Vance's weird campaign, which came out of nowhere. J.D. Vance was among the more normal people that I came across in Washington. There's not a lot of normal people in Washington, but J.D. is certainly among the more normal ones. But don't call him a retard. And I will tell you, the more you whine about it, the more you cry baby about it, the more you say you're going to be the bigger people while you're sobbing and swearing at us, the more you're going to get called retarded. So there you go. I think I've made my point there. And it's an important one because it is
it is a truly huge opportunity, a historic opportunity, and it is one where I would love to be able to call all sorts of people retards, because it's not just the Walz family. You're going to be hearing from a lot of retards on today's show. That's going to be the main theme. I'll tell you one, a Republican Senator, John Curtis, I cannot believe this is a real thing from a Republican. I know that he was kind of a squish to begin with, but this is clearly in the realm of retardation. Check out this clip from CNN.
Control anybody but me. Right. And the best thing I can do is set my example. And I think all of us need.
He's being asked to respond to Trump lashing out at Somalians, Minnesota Somalians, Tim Walz's home state. Trump saying he doesn't want them in our country.
All of us need to wake up every morning, look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? What am I doing specifically today to make this country a better country, to make all of our immigrants feel more welcome? That's what we've always had. And if
you guys catch that? You got to wake up every day and think, what do we have to do to make our immigrants feel more welcome? Let's hear the rest of the clip.
I think if more of us would do that, it would matter less what individual said.
Right. But as you know, he's not just an individual. He's the president of the United States, calling an entire community garbage.
So
it's kind of awesome when you play these interviews and there's obviously a key phrase in it and the host just doesn't know. And I know this happens. I got to tell you guys this is behind the curtain peek, is that when you do shows like these, I can't always tell what are the best or the spiciest moments while I'm recording. And sometimes it really does help to play it back to figure out what really was the best part. But I just feel like consistently I've been playing these clips where there are these just unbelievable moments. And then the host is just on to the next thing and not even paying attention. He says you have to wake up in the morning. His job is to wake up in the morning and to think, how do we make things more welcoming for immigrants? People are dying to come here. They're dying to come here. They're risking life and limb to come here. People are trying to game every system, every which way to try to come into this country. Immigrants feel perfectly welcome here. That's not the problem. The problem is, do Americans still feel welcome here? Because it's becoming pretty clear here that the entirety of the Democrat Party and a small portion, but a powerful portion to some degree, the Republican Party is more concerned about immigrants' rights than the rights of the American citizens. They want to continue to pick our pocket, we the tax-paying American citizens and our families, in order to try to make things a little bit better for immigrants, including illegal immigrants. So we don't need to do that. We don't need to wake up. We can just be courteous and nice, and we don't have to be a zero immigration country. I'm not calling for that, even though I think a moratorium is probably overdue at this point. But I just don't get the obsession that we need to wake up every day and figure out what more we can do for the immigrants. Like, why not more we can do for the Americans? Really disturbing, especially for Republicans. So just know that we should primary him, and but it's going to be ways off. I think he won last time, so he's pretty new. So it's going to be a while. Because the Democrats sound the same way. Here's our friend Zohran Mamdani. He was talking about ICE. And so this will be this is going to be the experiment, guys. We're tracking this experiment in New York City. Check it.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home.
So ICE is immigration and customs enforcement. So ICE is not going after legal immigrants. ICE is going after illegal aliens. So this is all just deeply dishonest. And he says it like he's serious, and he looks very serious, and he's a kindly, serious man. But it's just, it is imperative that we understand this, that this is all dishonest. He's a dishonest person. ICE's job is not to enforce some sort of a Trump negative racist agenda against immigrants who are here legally. No, their job is to get the people who are illegal aliens out of the country.
But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights. If you encounter ICE, these are the things that
those of you who missed the visuals, he wrote "Know Your Rights" on a whiteboard, and it was very faint. You could barely read it, but it was incredibly dramatic. It's just this is the social media age we're in now, is that if you act like you know what you're doing, then even if you don't know what you're doing, it's still considered preferential. So that is the approach we're taking.
Every New Yorker should know. First, ICE cannot enter into private spaces like your home, school, or a private area of your workplace without a judicial warrant signed by a judge. That looks like this.
He's giving illegal aliens tips, is what's happening right now, on how to not get detained and deported. So any of you who are alarmed by the cost of living in this country, any of you who are alarmed by crime, any of you who are alarmed by just the general nature of the bummed out populace that we have in our major cities, where everyone's on edge, everyone is struggling to make ends meet, no one feels comfortable in our major cities. It just, at least I certainly don't. Just know that any sort of effort to restore law and order at all, then the top elected leader in our biggest city, starting in 3 weeks or whatever, he is hard at work trying to make it so that it is as hard as possible to enforce our immigration laws.
If ICE does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you have the right to say, I do not consent to entry, and the right to keep your door closed. Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this and tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is false. ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, am I free to go, repeatedly until they answer you. You are legally allowed to film ICE as long as you do not interfere with an arrest. It is important to remain calm during any interaction with ICE or law enforcement. Do not impede their investigation, resist arrest, or run. One last thing. New Yorkers have a constitutional right to protest, and when I'm mayor, we will protect that right. New York will always welcome immigrants, and I will fight each and every day to protect, support, and celebrate our immigrant brothers and sisters.
I mean, has there been a president that's allowed more protests than Donald Trump? I mean, he's just getting protested constantly, like all over the country. It's just like he's just always being protested. So it's just the suggestion, that's why I'm saying this guy's so dishonest. He's suggesting that Trump is threatening the right to protest. No, he wants to enforce immigration and custom laws and for once put Americans ahead of Somalis who came in here and balkanized in Minnesota and then tried to rip off the aid organizations to try to confiscate more money from the taxpayer and steal from them to enrich themselves. That's the big issue. They're not saying they're best in Minnesota. They're not saying they're best in New York either. Here's Ilhan Omar speaking over the weekend, worth hearing from her as the ringleader of, the Somali immigrants, legal and illegal, trying to bilk our system.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America?
We should all reflect on that answer. Do we believe that there is a point to assimilating, or do we believe that we are just, as America, a homeland and a people? Is it a nation where you should theoretically have some appreciation and adherence to our founding documents, our founding principles, that should be a given? If you want to come here, if you weren't born here, if you were actually a visitor, if you were a guest here, do you think that's appropriate, that you would try to assimilate to American culture at all? Or do you feel like that you're just allowed to import your culture and to try to influence us by imposing your culture on us and not assimilating to ours? Seems like an obvious answer for most people, but if Stephen Miller says it, he must be wrong. And this is part of why we're so divided right now, is that there is this cognitive dissonance that takes place with the left, that even good ideas by Trump and people who are close to Trump, they can't accept those. They have to reject them just by nature of, oh, well, Stephen Miller's a bad guy for someone like Ilhan Omar. So she could never accept this is true. So let's see where she goes with it.
How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were.
Siri, what is Stephen Miller's religion? Oh, he's a Jew. Interesting. So she calls him a Nazi and she says he's like Hitler, even though he's a Jew and she's a Muslim. So is she trolling, or is she stupid, or is it a combination? I don't know. We need to just do we need to be much quicker about denaturalizing some of these people who are in this country as guests and kicking them out. That's all I got to say. Because if this is where the language is going, is that because Donald Trump and Trump administration would like some level of assimilation from the people who have come to America and have wanted to come to America and not just take advantage of us and not just try to take from our system and to try to benefit from our healthcare and our education and our safety and the freedoms that we have. And they should be expected to try to participate at a level that is a little more enthusiastic, just balkanizing and stealing from us, than anyone who objects to that might be a Nazi, even if he's a Jew. So she doesn't get me that worked up most of the time because she's such a radical, but it's very informative that this is a person with a major voice in Democrat politics showing up on CBS's Face the Nation. Let's see if there's a retort here from CBS.
Who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
Congresswoman Omar, thank you for your time today.
Margaret Brennan. Yeah, that's so great. So there's a new CBS, guys. It's a look, Barry Weiss took it over. Now it's a right-wing place. Just immediately, just lets it go. Just as go. The Jewish guy is really a Nazi. Okay. So we got standing up to ICE agents in New York. We've got Somalis who have not expected to assimilate in Minnesota. We get so many problems. And you guys understand, this is why, and I asked this of all of you on, what show was it? It was on Friday's show. I said, do you guys want to hear me comment more on conservative infighting that's going on? If it continues into next year, I think I will. When I make some announcements about the show, we're going to be doing some more shows. So we're going to be expanding the show, and I'll leave that there. And it's all great. It's fantastic news. And so I will have more time, I think, to comment on stuff that I don't think is top tier. But because I try to keep the shows tight, only do the 5 a week, I don't tend to spend a lot of time on this. But this is what I'm talking about, is that we are under deep assault from the left. The political left is attacking this country and MAGA. And yet I turn on my X Everything app feed, and the whole algorithm is conservatives fighting with conservatives, conservatives trying to destroy conservatives, conservatives demanding that different conservatives disavow other conservatives. And it's a very tough spot because a lot of people I really like and respect are doing some things I don't like. And there are other people that are doing things that I used to think were smart and productive people are doing things that are clearly designed to destroy MAGA and to try to divide MAGA on purpose. So a lot of that's happening. It's very hard to resist commenting on it on a regular basis. But let me just reveal to you what is going on here. Is you get the Republican establishment saying that we need to think about how to make immigrants' lives better, and not say immigrants should be disrespected, but there's not the top priority of American lawmakers is how do we make things better for the immigrants. It should be how do we make things better for Americans, American families, people who have roots here, who participated in our society for decades or centuries. So those we're going up against, and we're going up against a lot. We got a lot. We got the left, we got the Republican establishment continues to be a big deal. Dr. Oz, who I did not support in his Senate bid, is, I think he's doing a pretty good job as the administrator for Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. And he's been front and center and trying to identify some of this fraud that we've been talking about. He had a good clip that I wanted to share with all of you. Check this out.
It's true. A Somali fraud ring in Minnesota stole over $1 billion from Medicaid. How did this happen? Well, Medicaid programs are run by the states, which in Minnesota means the Tim Walz administration. Governor Walz and the state's other Democrats rely on Somali votes to get elected, so they decided to look the other way because they were afraid of, quote-unquote, political back.
This is why Tim Walz is a retard, and this is also why Tim Walz's daughter is a retard for saying that you can't call Tim Walz a retard.
Backlash. Don't take my word for it. That's what a Somali-American fraud investigator told the New York Times. When these scammers realized that nobody was guarding the cash register, they went gangbusters. One program designed to provide housing stabilization assistance to patients ballooned to $104 million. when 4 years ago it was projected to cost only $2.6 million. Some of these.
I mean, this is kind of awesome. And I was very skeptical of Dr. Oz when he ran for Senate in Pennsylvania. It seemed like a little carpetbag move, which I'm okay with, but it's not ideal. But I will say that this is pretty impressive. I mean, was he Oprah's doctor? And then now he's out there and he's just throwing down on left-wing fraudsters. And this is going a long way with me. This is showing a lot of credibility because this is a fight, obviously, the left, and a lot of people supported his work for decades. They're not going to be happy he's doing this.
Some of these taxpayer funds may have even ended up in the hands of a Somalian terrorist group. Scary stuff. When CMS became aware of the housing program situation, Minnesota insisted it could clean up its own mess. A few months ago, it admitted it could not. So we stepped in to shut down the fraud-infested housing initiative. Today, we're taking action on more than a dozen other programs, which I've outlined in the post below. Our message to Walz is clear. Either fix this in 60 days or start looking under your couch for spare change, because we are done footing the bill for your incompetence. This administration will never stop fighting to protect the vulnerable Americans who rely on these programs and the taxpayers who fund them. We're going to crush waste, fraud, and abuse.
You can see the guys who are the good prompter readers. That's some great prompter reading by Dr. Oz. But I got to have one edit there, speech writing team. You've got to work in the word retard in there. You've got to work in. He says, Tim Walz is incompetent. Say, no, Tim Walz is retardation. That's the way you do it. That's how you get the extra attention, get the extra eyeballs on it. Just a little tip from a media guy to Dr. Oz. Otherwise, great statement. And I'm glad they're investigating this in a major way. And just know this, that we are not, as much as it's entertaining, amusing to get super tribal, super granular, fighting amongst ourselves, that the real problems are pretty plain to see at this point. And if we divide the MAGA coalition too much, then we could be looking at, in a few years, this guy is the president of the United States.
We have a party that I think needs to design and develop a compelling economic vision for the future where people feel included, to reconcile the fact that if we don't democratize our economy, we're not going to save democracy. And I don't think it's healthy that we have 10% of people that own 2/3 the wealth in this country. I don't think it's sustainable.
Okay, let's hear that again, because many of you are not used to this level of brilliance and this sort of rhetorical gifts that Gavin Newsom has. Those of you who can't tell, this is Gavin Newsom speaking. One more time.
I think needs to design and develop a compelling economic vision for the future where people feel included, to reconcile the fact.
First of all, I know everyone's done this at this point. I'm pausing on the screen, and I am a straight red-blooded male, warm-blooded male, whatever you want to call it, who will occasionally cross his legs in a speech. I find it be comfy. Sometimes settle in the chair when you get the deep set chair. It's just better than the man spreading. Sometimes it's not to say I'm judging man spreading. I've been very complimentary of my friend James Lindsay's historic man spreading that he's done over the years. But the Newsom, the way he's crossing his legs, he's really indulging it with the leg crossing. I think it was New York Post I saw somewhere writing a testicle crunching cross. That's what it looks like. It's very odd look for any man at all. But this is, and you can see it. So Andrew Ross Sorkin, who's next to him, this is that same New York Times Deal Book Summit. You can see in the screen that he's got kind of a normal leg cross. Newsom's doing this sort of pretzel twist deal, which I don't understand.
Reconcile the fact that if we don't democratize our economy, we're not going to save democracy. And
if we don't democratize our economy, we're not going to save democracy. So I don't know what that means. No one knows what that means. He certainly doesn't know what that means. And I will tell you one thing I would know for certain, having not watched this whole interview, I can bet $1 million that Andrew Ross Sorkin of the New York Times does not stop Newsom and say, with all due respect, Governor, but if you say, if we don't democratize our economy and allow for the distribution of wealth, our democracy will die, then that sounds retarded, which he should, and ask him to clarify.
democracy. And I don't think it's healthy that we have 10% of people that own 2/3 the wealth in this country. I don't think it's sustainable practice. The folks watching Mr. Beast, disproportionately 30-year-olds, the first generation in history not doing better than their parents. There's some underlying issues here that have to be addressed. We have an economy that is broken for too many people.
Yeah, some of that's true. And the part of it is, though, he doesn't need to say anything. He doesn't actually need to say anything for him potentially to have the upper hand. I'll plug, this is my Fight Club interview at Breitbart News today with John Carney. We go through sort of an economic roundup. And one thing that I'm identifying is that Wall Street Journal, a big article today on something called cranky consumers, meaning that people are actually spending a lot, but they're still bummed out about it. They still feel like the economic prospects are not great for them, even though they're still spending, which means that they're kind of buying into the YOLOing their money away, and they don't feel like things are actually going to get better for them, but they're still buying stuff, accumulating a lot of consumer debt. It is very risky for whichever party's in power, and that's us. So we're seeing gas prices under $3 across the country, which is amazing. We're seeing the inflation reduced, and I think if Scott Bessent's to be believed, which we discussed on the show a couple weeks ago, you would think that we're going to see close to zero inflation next year. All that's great. But overall, we need to see affordability improve, or else people like Gavin Newsom are going to walk around saying we're not democratizing the economy. There's too many rich people. And that will be perceived as the fault of Donald Trump. And it's not going to be perceived as the fault of a system that was broken by generations of Americans who are not good at leading, in particular, the Democrats and Joe Biden. So just important to note that, putting that down there, that will be a marker for years to come. I want to talk about something positive in my life, and there's a Christmas hook in this, but I'll tell you something I did last week. So Laura Ingraham, you guys would know this. I do Laura Ingraham show about once a week on Fox, and it's the only Fox show I'm on at this point. And why that is, it's a long story, but it's one for a different time, a different place. But I do Laura's show. It's a primetime show. Very easy to get down to Fox LA from where I live. Very challenging to get back. And I had a pile of work I had to do, and I get car sick. I get motion sickness, nausea. And I'll tell you, though, I have a new routine. And so when I go down there, and you always want to go to the studio, they'll send the van to me. They're very nice about that. The vans are very expensive, and they don't light you quite as well, though a couple of guys do a good job, but they don't light you as well. It looks amazing in the studio, sounds amazing, everything's synced up. It's way more pro to go to the studio. But then I got to kill an hour and a half, takes over an hour and a half in the car on the way back, and I'm just sitting there waiting, and I want to read, I want to do work. But until recently, I couldn't do it. But now I can. I can with Relief Band. This is real. You set the thing up on your wrist. It is a watch-like device. You strap it on yourself, and when you're traveling, family gathering, stress the season, whatever it is that makes you feel like you could be nauseous, whatever it is, then this sends a signal to your brain that controls the nausea and allows me to get work done. So it is the original anti-nausea wristband, quickly relieves, helps prevent nausea, vomiting, causes motion sickness, with anxiety, hangovers, which hopefully you're not getting too many of those, morning sickness, chemotherapy, so much more. Relief Band Sport and Relief Band Flex, 2 options for you. They're designed for real life. Sport, sleek and rechargeable, water resistant, perfect for travel on active days, great for holiday flights, theme parks, road trips, or even post-workout recovery. I've gotten nauseous from a hard workout. Not a lot, but it happens. Flex is built for comfort all day wear, interchangeable bands and battery. It's ideal for anyone who wants easy and everyday relief. I think I got the Sport. It works great. I throw in the charger. I can see the charger right now, and you set it up on your wrist. It's safe, proven technology. Sends gentle pulses to your wrist that quickly eases nausea, and you could adjust the intensity depending on how you feel, and you feel it starts working right away. So here's how you get it. If you want to head in the holidays with in the new year, feeling your best, join the hundreds of thousands of people who are nausea-free with Relief Band. Right now, an exclusive offer for Alex Marlow Show listeners. Go to reliefband.com, use the promo code ALEX, and you get 20% off plus free shipping. Also remember, Relief Band has extended their return window for holiday purchases through January 1, so you can shop, gift with confidence. Reliefband.com, RELIEFBAND.com. Use promo code Alex for 20% off. And you're getting the full-fledged endorsement here, guys. I'm using it. It's a product I use on a personal level. So not just good people, but just the type of product that it's in the rotation. It's allowing me to get more done when I'm on the road. Yeah. I'm looking at an article, Breitbart right now. We should interrogate drug runners we catch and not blow up evidence. It's just they just root against, the left just roots against America. They root against us. That's David Brooks, who was a conservative, very popular and considered a conservative, the New York Times. That's their definition of a conservative. And all it is we can't take out the bad guys. We have to, haul them in, gum up the works in the system. The Times, though, is starting to understand that they need to, I think, do a slightly better job, I would say, to put it mildly, when it comes to reporting what's really happening in this country. And they're free to do that because Biden's not in power. Mayorkas is not in power. But they did a story on how Biden ignored his advisors' warnings on border policy. Biden advisors said it could bring chaos. Not Alejandro Mayorkas, though. He was the architect of Biden's border policy. I wrote about this, of course, in Breaking Biden, my second book, where I go through how he intentionally undid all the good Donald Trump did on day one. Literally, the second he gets in the office, he removes Remain in Mexico. He eventually removed Title 42, which is the restrictions on aliens coming in from a country that has had infectious disease, such as a pandemic. He cut out the Northern Triangle agreements, these economic agreements that we had with the Northern Triangle countries that would, I think, disincentivize people to try to make a run for the United States in terms of migration. And trying to become economic migrants to our country. And of course, he ceased the border wall and border enforcement. So everything you could have done wrong, he did it. And he did it intentionally. Of course, it caused chaos. And I think it would probably end up being even worse than he would have anticipated. I think this is the whole point when I talk about cognitive dissonance, how the Democrats on the left must reject everything Trump does. I think that was the origin of it. But even he could have probably not seen exactly how bad it was going to go. And that's why I note this, that over and over again, is that we are in a case where the left is constantly working against basic American values. That is what they aspire to do. What they aspire to do is to try to undermine the American experiment, because they think America, if you believe the stuff of the revisionist history of America, and you start thinking about, well, maybe America's not an exceptional place. Maybe we've got too many flaws. Then all of a sudden, it just normalizes the idea that we're going to replace Americans. We're going to do the great replacement, which is obviously happening in this country. All right, a couple other things to update you on media-wise. Paramount Skydance is launching a hostile bid for the Warner Brothers Discovery takeover. I mentioned last week's show that Netflix jumped in the lead. Netflix, of course, is a Obama joint at this point, and far left, as I've noted, destroying the theatrical experience, which is with their emphasis on streaming. And they would control about 40% of the streaming, I think, marketplace with Netflix, HBO, and then Paramount. And it's obviously left-wing people who would be running it. So not a positive development. Paramount is launching a hostile bid, so they're trying to take it over. CEO there is David Ellison, the son of Larry Ellison, who's maybe world's richest man, if not second richest, and someone who's more sympathetic to our political worldview. And they're now offering, I think, to pay about 140% of what the market value is perceived to be in order to get this deal through. You could bet the Trump administration would probably prefer Paramount to run it. Or to win out in the end. But a lot of this is going to be on the Department of Justice, and it's going to be on the antitrust regulators. So Brendan Carr was cited as saying that the antitrust division of the DOJ is ultimately going to end up deciding how this is going to work out. But Paramount's attempting to now get back in the lead, and it all seems pretty clumsy. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of clear path here. Other than that, Netflix has now made the bid that's seen as the most viable at this point. There's some new investors that have jumped on board. Jared Kushner's group has come in on behalf of Paramount, as well as some other financing from the Middle East, according to reporting from Semaphore. So they've got money coming in from Apollo, Bank of America, and Citi. So that would be the coordinated group that would go in on Paramount's behalf. Obviously, I'm rooting for Paramount in this, but overall, it's things are looking like Netflix is in the lead, and that's not a great thing if it goes through, because it's just Netflix getting more powerful is not just worse for movies. I think the Netflix products that they put out are generally horrible, often predatory for children, and often very far left. But it's just in general, these are just enriching some of the worst people in the entertainment business, and not great. So I'm rooting for Paramount, but we got our fingers crossed here, but not looking positive. Those of you who care about such things. Elon Musk has been fined, his X app, $140 million for not following censorship laws in the EU, and he's called for the EU to be abolished and a return to national sovereignty. I love this stuff. Musk he's compelling because I don't think he's got a cohesive ideology, which makes him less trustworthy, but sometimes more compelling, because he's so right on this, and I love it. And I love the blunt language that only you have $100 billion and no one's going to tell you what to say. And he calling for the EU to be abolished and a return to national sovereignty is amazing. This has been one of the projects of Breitbart, things we've been focused on for the last decade. Is the European Union has been one of the greatest threats to national sovereignty in the West during this century, and they have no good track record. EU has become a worse economic engine, and the culture, of course, has suffered greatly because they have been completely overwhelmed by the immigrants from the Middle East, which has been, I think, not helpful to their economy and certainly not helpful to their culture. So all of this is related, and now they're going after, they've never had free speech as a value, but now basically saying that Musk has got to pay up $140 million for not following censorship laws. All a drop in the bucket for him, but the principle of it is really intense, and Musk has spoken up about it. Misty pulled a clip for me of it. Check it.
Yes, I think as a general rule, you can tell which side is the good side and which side is the bad side by which side wishes to restrict freedom of speech. The side that is restricting freedom of speech, that would have been sort of the Hitler, Stalin, Mussolinis of the world. They had very strong censorship, very strong restrictions on speech.
It's very interesting because he's such a brilliant guy. Whatever you think of him, he's obviously an incredibly intelligent person. But then he distills these things down. He says something that's so simple that typically the people want to restrict speech are the bad guys. I think about this a lot, especially when I'm watching some of the highly irritating infighting going on amongst conservatives lately. And I think about this exact point, is that should I be out there calling on people to condemn people and disavowing everyone and saying we need to not pay attention to certain people? I find all of it off-putting because I think a Musk point is salient here, is that generally the best retort to bad speech is more speech, better speech, not to censor the speech. So, and I'm not saying that people who say that you should distance yourself from X figure, disavow X figure, I'm not saying that makes them censorious directly, but they're sort of in the same ballpark, aren't they? The same family. Speech. And I just have always found that very off-putting.
That's one of the signs that they are the bad guys. And so, in fact, a restriction on speech and large government is fundamentally fascist, obviously. So, ironically, in pushing for censorship, it makes it very clear that the left is the side that is against freedom. And freedom of speech is simply one of many freedoms that we should have as a civil society. Because ideas should win on the strength of their arguments. They should not win because they are suppressed.
He's fun to agree with. I like it when we can agree with Mr. Musk on that stuff, but he's totally right. And he calls out the left also, which I like. Look, maybe I'll be a Musk fan again. Maybe he'll come back to me. All right. The last one I was going to bring up, I was kind of trying to come up with a better context for this, but there's an internet personality named Dave Portnoy who runs Barstool Sports, and he was on a tear. He's worth a lot of money, hundreds of millions, and he was on a tear about some football event. And I just found this to be incredibly compelling. And I wanted to play this for you and offer some thoughts.
That's the worst beat of all time. And you have to investigate the Raiders. Investigate the Raiders. What are they doing? What the fuck? That's the worst beat of all time. That is cheating. What the fuck? I gotta rewind this. That's the worst fucking beat of all time. This is the worst beat of all time. Pete Carroll should be in fucking prison.
Pete Carroll's the coach of the Raiders. So for those of you who are not sports ball fans or only loosely follow sports ball, the Broncos played the Raiders, and the Broncos were, I guess, covering the spread, and there was some pretty odd, sloppy plays, decision-making at the end of the game that did suggest that maybe there was something being done to manipulate the spread. So the outcome of the game was not in question. It was like a 10-point lead for the Broncos, but I think the spread was 8 points, and meaning that those of you who are unfamiliar with sports gambling, that means I think it was anticipated the Broncos would win by 8 points or more. And then there was a lot of fumbling and bumbling, figuratively speaking, at the end of the game to make it suspicious that the Raiders were trying to, I guess, not cover the spread. And so this is what he's reacting to. But the point isn't what happened in the game as much as that this is a 50-year-old man reacting to sports betting in this way.
Prison for Pete Carroll. First of all, the refs, everybody. This is prison. This is prison. There's 16 seconds left in the game. By the way, the play before this, there was fucking 20 seconds. They threw it. Prison. The spread's 8.5. They spiked the ball, by the way. They ran up and spiked it as a tempo. Prison Pete Carroll. Murder Pete Carroll. I want Pete Carroll murdered. Can you see this play right here?
That's real. He's saying you should murder the coach of the Raiders. In an assassination era, an era where we've just seen the highest profile assassination in half a century in this country, that we're now seeing a major personality with millions of followers online suggests that we should murder the coach of the Raiders.
Can you see this play? 10, 9, 8, scramble, throws it down, game's over. There's 8, 7, 6. They throw a flag for sitting on the guy with 4 seconds. They're not even going to come close to getting a playoff. They call a delay a game with 4 seconds. The game was over. The game was over. What the hell? And then they run out the field goal unit and kick a field goal with no time left. Prison.
Unbelievable. I don't even fully understand the nuances of the argument he's making in terms of gambling. I don't care. Here's the point. Is the sports betting obsession has got to end. Grown men should not be acting like this. It is not an example to younger people. And I don't want to come on here with my, try to be some sort of an old fuddy-duddy scold, but it's a waste of your life. Like, you spend all this time sports betting. And I think gambling's fun. I play poker sometimes. But it's the obsession with sports, the obsession with sports betting that's been normalized in our society is going to make a lot of people bankrupt. It's going to make a lot of people very unhappy. And is not a way to build a fulfilling life, is that you get hung up on whether or not the Raiders are going to cover the spread versus the Broncos in a game that everyone knew that the Broncos are going to win the game. Broncos are one of the best teams in the league. Raiders, terrible team. Everyone knew the outcome basically, but then you're living and dying on whether or not they win by 7 or 10. It's just no way to live. And to see, I know a lot of this is performative, that he does this to get attention. It's all marketing. I'm playing on the show. But he's calling for murder of a coach. And even if it's a joke, it's not a very good joke. And so I'm putting a marker in this because it's very important, because I feel like we might start seeing the pendulum swing back a little bit. But the sports gambling obsession, we've got to knock this stuff off as society. Really have to. Highly, highly addictive, because it's so easy to do. So this is the whole thing. Is that when I play cards sometimes, but it's always in person, either I'm in Las Vegas or if it's friends, but you start doing it online, it gets highly addictive. And I did this when I was in my early 20s. I would play online poker when that was a legal thing. And I don't know, is it legal now again? I don't think it is. But it's highly addictive. You feel like you should be playing it all the time once you're doing it. Once you've succumbed to that, I'm allowing myself to do this. You spend 20 hours a weekend on it. And like, why am I spending 20 hours a weekend on this activity that gets me nowhere in my life? So, and then you go online and you feel like it's just normalized. It's something that is celebrated online. It's celebrated online, this type of level of, I won't say sin, but certainly vice. It's vice. And I think vice that's under control is important. I think no one's perfect. Unless there is another Jesus Christ walking among us who I haven't heard of. None of us are perfect. So I think you are going to have some vice. So having some vice under control is probably the best thing you can do, but is not going to be under control for a lot of people. Obviously, it's not for Dave Portnoy, who seems like a complete psychopath. Because even if he's just doing performance art and attention seeking, calling for murder is obviously too far. So it's a dark thing that's happening with sports gambling. And I saw this as an example. I thought this is a perfect excuse to make this vital point. One of the top things I would say to young men is don't get hooked on it. Don't do it. Whatever it takes, not get hooked on sports betting. Avoid it at all costs. Okay, that's a nice happy note to go out on the show. Thanks to John Cassio for pulling clips. Thanks to Misty for putting the show together, and all of you telling 10,000 friends and family members, but all the hard work we're doing the Marlow Show. And that's it. That's the best way you can help me out. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.